By this point, I've probably started a lot of videos with I think I've cracked the code and created the perfect commuter. But seriously, I think I've cracked the code and I think I've created the perfect commuter. I have said this a few times now, but in 2022, I think was the first time I really truly believed it, and that bike I rode for quite a long time. It was my Rally Mirage. I actually picked up the frame from the Marin Man from Instagram. He had it, I think he got it as a parts bike so he could build one of his awesome Marins, and it just had this large Rally purple frame sitting around, so I was like, I'll buy it off you. Turned it into a nice, comfortable, upright commuter. It had DTH tyres on it, quite thick ones. I think they were probably like 2.3s, charged spoon, curved handlebars, V-brakes, stopped on a dime. Like, it was tip top. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But as always, I kind of just felt slightly out of love of it. I think it was mainly the fact that the frame was probably about that much too big for me, so it didn't quite sit right when I looked at it. Felt fine, it was just slightly too big, so I decided to actually give it to a friend of mine who was quite a bit taller than me. I don't know if you've ever built it. Maybe we need to turn that into a video. Sean, if you're watching, we need to build that bike. But yeah, so I moved on, built a few bikes in between that, and they were fine. They were okay, but I wanted to kind of like reel it back in again. If you've been following me for a little while now, you might have seen the moon run that we did last year now in like October sort of time. I built it just before I did my group ride, and it was the kind of ultimate bike. It was perfect in every way. I put my new favourite handlebars on there, the Ritchie Coyotes. The Cycle Manivel basket got sent over to me, so that went on there. It had the medium Atelier fork on there as well. Everything just like, it was just right. And I rode it all winter, which was the plan for it. Scoot forward to now, coming into spring, there's a few issues with it, some bits that needed sorting out, and the main thing is the fact that it never really shifted quite right. I couldn't work out what it was, to be honest, and we'll go into that in this video. So I needed to sort that out. The brakes also, because it had the cantilever brakes and because of the clearance that I needed, especially on the front one, the cables were really long and it just didn't brake the way I wanted it to brake. It was fine, but just fine wasn't enough for what I wanted to do. So I want to do something about those, and then a few little like just niggly bits. So today's video, without going on any further, is looking at that bike again and rebuilding it. And this was going to be a very quick kind of like, oh, look what I've done, I've just changed a couple of things, but that's not what happened. I ended up going to town on this bike, having many issues with this bike, and creating essentially a whole new build with it. So buckle up, and let's go and rebuild my commuter and honestly create the perfect bike. It's a bold statement, right? Right then, here she is in all her glory. Pretty filthy, but there's definite glory there. Let's stop that wheel. Thank you. You can see from the dirt, this has definitely been my winter commuter. The back wheel in particular is proper filthy. Everything on the bike I am happy with, I will say that now. The main problem is the tyres, I think, are just not really cut out for this time of year now, for road riding at least anyway. They're great for gravel, they are gravel kings after all, and then the indexing, but naturally I will probably get carried away by the end of the video. Oh, and the brakes need to be changed. But first things first, so you're going to mess around with a bike that's been dirty, you need to clean it. So starting off the chain, look how happy that cleaner is. Just bouncing around, having a good old time. You're a good little cleaner. You're a good boy. Yeah. I did decide at this point, after giving it a bit of a clean, it's probably worth going through the gears to make sure they are, or if it's made a difference, essentially just cleaning it. And it was still kind of getting a little bit funky around this area here. I went through the indexing quite a bit to see if it was that, and it didn't make a difference. So I think it's the hanger that's the problem. So we're going to have to come back to that in a little bit.
I did, however, go on a bit of a side quest. The wheels that I have on this bike at the moment, I've used on a few builds. I have a few sets of them. They're very good. But I found these on eBay for 50 quid and couldn't not buy them because of the spoke pattern. I don't know if there's any real benefit to this spoke pattern, but it looked kind of dope. So yeah, I picked them up. I'm not going disc brakes on this bike, I'm going to go V brakes, so I needed to get these discs off, and then I also needed to get the cassette, because I want to keep the 10 speed that's on their bike at the moment, and the one that it came with is a 9, I think it's a 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's 9. I gave the wheels a good wash off camera, ready to put some new rubber on. I've never used these before. These are Easton Growler tyres, 26 2.1s, multi-surface, so I figured they'd be quite good for hopefully road, which is where I'm going to be riding this bike most of the time, but that 1 or 2 times a month, maybe sometimes a week, where I go and do a little gravel trail or something, whatever, during the summer and that. So I wanted to try something different anyway. Plus the big yellow bold logo on these tires just looks sick, so yeah. The one thing I did notice when I started unwrapping it and getting it ready to go on is that they are omnidirectional. I think that's a very fancy way of saying they go both ways, doesn't it, really? Yeah, the tread, or the tread pattern, it's not direction specific. Some big words for me. I don't usually use these big words, but I'm pretty happy with them. I think they look quite cool. They fit nice on the wheels, and the wheels themselves I think will also look very cool on the bike. A bit different, and hopefully they run nice. It's a lot of effort if they don't run nice. Right then, it's now time to start adding some parts to this bike. I want to put the wheels on there to check it out, but I also don't want to put it on a dirty bike, and it's easier to clean the bike once the wheels are off. So let's start with that, and the back one. The back one, I actually always forget this. These tyres, these 2.2s, but like they're quite chunky and quite wide. So yeah, you have to let that air out to actually get the tyre out. Next, I'm taking off the derailleur. I want to have a closer look at that hanger, plus it's quite easy to kind of like get in here and clean all the bits and pieces. Brakes, I'm changing these up for some V brakes. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet, but I'm doing that. This is kind of weird actually, stripping down a bike that like, one is going to get all the parts put back on it in a second, but also that I only built a minute ago. Just saying. And then the brakes, these levers, these are for cantilevers. I'm going V, so I'm going to change these for something else. Plus, I'm going to change the bar as well, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I always say the best way to clean a bike, especially at the end of the season, is to take the wheels off. Especially if you've got fenders as well, like you really want to be able to get in there. The rear triangle, kind of like within the fork and stuff. It's so much easier. You're going to do a better job if you take the wheels off. Simple as that. So now on to something that I realise at this moment in time that I'd never even done before. I've got this tool to basically straighten the hanger, but never used it. So this will be a learning curve for me. Spoiler alert, it worked. I'm not 100% sure how this works completely, so I'm not going to tell you exactly right now. I'm going to learn a bit about it. I've got another hanger that needs this doing, and we'll do a video on it. But essentially, my understanding at least is the fact that you want it to be in line with the wheel, or use the wheel as a guide to get it straight. And then you go around with this device, measuring it to the wheel, and then pulling it at angles to kind of get it all straight in the same place, essentially. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but whatever I did, it worked this time at least. For everybody who's seen the first episode of my new series, Ain't Broken Just Dirty, the cargo bike behind you is currently making a horrible sound. It's just perfect candidate for the series, and for everybody else who's been asking me, yes, the stickers have been ordered, so hopefully by the time I do the cargo bike in a couple episodes time, the stickers will be available. On that note, stickers are back. By the time you're watching this at least. So I've been low on quite a few stickers
up until this week. You lot have gone mad for them. We sold out for pretty much everything. There's a few dribs and drabs stuff left on the website, but I know that's the stuff that no one really wants. And a lot of people have been asking for the Bulky Boy Bike Club stickers. I have, by the time you watch this, I should have them in my hands. They're currently in Germany, I believe, coming from Sweden, but the stickers are on their way. And by the time this video is live, you will be able to order them at least, or purchase them. Here's a little idea of what we've got, some of the new colorways. I'm going for something bright, something vibrant, especially with this bike. Like, if you look at some of the stickers that are on this build, they were quite vibrant, so that was kind of the feel I had when I was ordering these. So we're going nice and vibrant for spring, or the beginning of summer, I think. By the time you watch this video, it might actually be the start of British summertime, so that's exciting. But I have another sticker drop coming soon as well. So they're churning out at the moment. You are keeping me on my toes. I'm doing a lot of design work at the moment, which I really enjoy doing. So thank you very much for buying them so I do more. So if you're interested, hit up saveourbikes.com. There's loads of new ones that have just gone live today when you saw this video, or a few days ago, depending on when you're watching this video. But bike build.
I gotta say, these wheels were such an unnecessary upgrade or adjustment to be making, but these spokes look so freaking cool. So I'm glad I did it, and the tyres are dope as well. Look at this, even with my fancy little toolbox now, it takes me 3 or 4 goes to actually pick up the right things. I should actually look at what I'm picking up instead of just grabbing anything. But anyway, this bolt here that's holding the brake hanger on there is also holding on the fender. I had a hunch that it'd be the same size as a top cap bolt, and oh my god, my hunches are never correct. So I was very excited about that, and I used this to kind of hold it on there. Who knew? The brakes in question are these Shimano V brakes that I'm using. I like these very much because they're black for a start, so they go a little bit better with the build. I didn't like the silver ones too much, even though I know that some of you did. They are, I forget the model, they're like pretty bog standard. They're very good, but bog standard. Like maybe like BH or a BL or a TF. Got a couple of letters in it and a few numbers. If you search Shimano V brakes, you'll find these basically. I think they're about 20 quid for a set, not too expensive, or maybe 20 quid each. I should do some more research into things I'm doing, really. Pro tip, if you want to call it that, I always make sure I try and line up the blocks before I do any cable routing and stuff like that. One, make sure they actually fit the bike. Like a lot of these parts we just pull together and see if they work, so it's a good time to check before you do anything else. But also it's just an easy way of doing it, at least to get it almost right, so then when you do put those cables on, you might need to do a teeny little adjustment, but basically they're ready to go. Next, we're going on to the bars. These were very last minute purchase. These are Cannondale Commuters, maybe? I can't remember exactly. They're usually about 80 quid, maybe 70 quid, something like that. Quite expensive. I found these on Merlin, I believe, for $16.99 and couldn't resist to buy them. Kind of moto bar style handlebars, a bit of a raise, a bit of a sweat back as well. And they feel really comfortable in my hands, so hopefully they will be on the bike as well. The one thing I am starting to think about as I'm doing this is the height was kind of okay on this build, I'm not gonna lie. So putting some riser bars on there may not be the best idea. So I have another stem and some spacers that I might need to mess around with to kind of get a nice kind of feel, but I'm not going to do that until I've ridden it. I'm actually going to see my dad this weekend as you're watching this. I'm going to go for a ride, and I'm going to take a stem with me and then maybe change it whilst we're out on the ride and see how it feels. But yeah, it needs some tweaking that I won't do in this video, just because I need to ride it really before I know exactly how it feels and where it needs to be. The worst part about being a backyard mechanic is the rain, so here's me rushing around trying to put away all my parts and my tools so they don't get wet again. I wouldn't mind so much, but it wasn't even meant to rain today. Then something happened that annoyed me more than I can really put into words. In my rushing round to try and get this bike in the shed, I just flipped it through the gears to see kind of how it was shifting, and forgot that I hadn't indexed it or done the limit screws yet, and it went straight into the wheel itself over the cassette. And then it took me such a long time to get it out. The answer is yes, I should just take the wheel off and it'd been easier to take the cassette off, done. But when you're this tired and you've been working this long on a bike and you just kind of, your head's like, no, it'll just come out. No, it'll just come out. And you just do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. And then you could have just taken it off, took the cassette off, and then it would have been fine. But you don't, you just fight yourself instead. Did it though. What a stupid problem to have. So before I did anything else, I then worked on the limiting screws, make sure it was all in the right place. It wasn't actually getting to the 11 cog, so it needed adjusting both ways to kind of get it all set again. Obviously the dishing on this wheel is slightly over, which is a good thing, because the higher I went up this cassette, the worse the chain line got. So now it's a little bit better, so that's good. And then after doing all the indexing, as you can see, it shifts nicely now and way better than it did before, so that bending on the hanger worked. Right then, we are on the home stretch. The last thing I need to do is the brakes. Now the cables, or the outer cables, I'm going to reuse. They're absolutely fine, they're not even that old, only a few months, but they are slightly wrong size, so I had to trim the back one. The front one ended up being too short, so I did have to go and grab another bit that I had left over from when I first built this bike up, and just trim that up. The inner cables I am replacing entirely, just because they've been stretched out and they're all different lengths and stuff, and I just thought it'd be easier, and I've got loads of it, so. So the way I set my V-brakes up is actually super simple. First things first is I wind out the adjustment on the actual brake itself all the way out on the actual lever. Then when you go back to the cable, you pull the cable as tight as you can so the brakes are clamping down on the actual wheel itself, and then you tighten it there. Then once you've done that, you go back up to the lever and unwind it, or sorry, wind it back in again, so it is loose on the wheel and you've got a perfectly aligned V-brake. Then to actually center your brakes, for example, currently the left hand side of mine is touching the wheel before the right hand, you can adjust these little screws. If you tighten these screws, it puts pressure on the actual brake and opens it up, and if you loosen it, it loosens it up or lets it go in more. Just you'll get it, you'll work it out. It's one way or the other. This is why I don't do full tutorial videos, because we get somewhere really good, everything's starting to make sense, and then I just let go of it all and it just ends up being a train wreck at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of the show where we now have finished the build and we can go look at it. Let's look at it. I mean, come on, look at this beefcake, it's stunning. I imagine a lot of people that watch my channel, especially these types of videos, build or have built or want to build bikes, and I feel like a lot of you will probably have that feeling where you've done something where it was near perfect on paper, and in your head you were like, this is the bike, this is the way it's going to do, or I'm going to build it and it's going to be just tip top perfect. Then you have a couple of little bits that don't quite sit right, and then you just don't love it the same way, you know?
Well, this was one of those builds, the indexing and gearing in particular, just the fact that I could never get it to shift properly no matter what I did, just always niggled on me. And then the brakes again, no matter what I did to them, I just couldn't get them to just be good and good enough for London commuting, which a lot of the time people pull in front of you and you need to stop immediately, so they just wasn't quite right. That love, that feeling, that kind of like bond that I wanted to get from this bike, I now have. It's perfect. Except one thing. This wouldn't be a Second Life Bikes video if I didn't get to the end of it and be like, oh yeah, that was brilliant, but. So, the but is the stem. And it's not necessarily the fact that there's a big issue with it, and a lot of my videos end with the stem needs something, and it's because it's one of those things that if you haven't measured it to other bikes and you're not quite sure because of the size frame or whatever, you won't know until you've tried it really. Even if you're sitting on it is a good feeling, but after riding this bike for a little while, my palms start aching a little bit here where the handlebars are just slightly too close to me and I'm leaning on them too hard essentially. So I'm going to try two things. I'm going to try moving the handlebars slightly away from me, see how that feels, and if that's not quite right, I might lower them as well, or lower them and then do that. There's a few things I want to try. It's one of those things just kind of like, you do have to try it out to see which way it works to feel right, but it's a brilliant bike. My wife laughs at me every time I've said this to her over the last few days, but I think this is my forever bike. I will build other bikes for myself, and I will probably someday rebuild this one slightly, but like, it's the bike that in my head, I'm like, this is what I want for my commuter. This is the one that I want for my everyday riding, the cycling that you do every single day. This is that build. This is exactly what I want. This is exactly how I feel, and it just fits right. So I don't think I'm ever going to replace it, if I'm honest. I will ride this bike into the ground. Maybe if I found a frame with the exact same geometry but a very cool color, different like that, maybe I'd swap the frame out, but like the build, the setup is just there. The only thing that I definitely will change over the year as time goes on is tires, but I do that anyway through seasons. If I'm going to use it for a special trip, I might put a different pair of tires on it, and so on and so on. I'm starting to yammer on a little bit, but the point is, I dig it. I think I nailed this one. I mean, that's quite a nice ending to one of my videos. You know, I'm buzzing, I'm well chuffed with it. I'm actually going to take it to Somerset this weekend, or when you're watching this. I probably went for a ride yesterday, tomorrow, I can't remember. But I'm going to take it out with my dad, go for a little bit of a cruise. He has one of my old bikes that I actually built for him, which is a Scott something, I've forgotten what model it was, but I built that for him a while ago. It's a very similar type of build with this, the big chunky tyres, big large frames. So we'll go for a ride together, and maybe I'll make a video for that as well. So yeah, even if you don't have one yet, everybody is definitely thinking about that forever bike when it comes to retro builds and stuff. But what's stopping you from building yours? I want to know in the comments below. Is there something that is like a geometry thing? Is there something about the parts you just can't decide on them? But yeah, let me know. Right then, if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and if you want to see more of these types of videos, we make these every single week, and you can actually subscribe to the channel with this button here. And if you're one of those pesky people that watch my videos every week and haven't subscribed, you know what to do. And if you can't wait until next year, that was quite aggressive, please subscribe to the channel. But if you can't wait until next week, this video here is a particularly good one. I just give up.